Hi, you guys. Welcome back. I'm Richard Sachs here with Doug Diamond, and this is Lost Arts Radio Live. This is a short show because this is the one special for the platform, so we don't get kicked off and save our connection with you if we can. Having been through re-education on this platform and everything, we don't want to lose our subscribers yet, and you can always go to lostartsradio.com and see where our full shows are on other platforms that are still letting us be there. So for a long time, I was using sarcasm to talk about things in a kind of reverse way, hoping that would get by the AI and things like that. But then some people didn't like the sarcasm so much. So I thought, all right, what can I do for today? And I wrote you a story. You could call it a bedtime story, but you don't have to go to bed right now. It could just be for whatever you're doing at the moment. And you can take it as completely meaningless and just a silly story or not. And so I think the only way to finish it and have a chance to finish it in the short time that we've got, which is really only a few minutes, is I'm going to try to read it fairly quickly. And then you can just draw your own conclusions and tell me what you think. So this is like a short story, a science fiction fantasy, imagining a civilization that might have been on a planet a long time ago in a galaxy, like they say in Star Wars, a galaxy far, far away. And the planet was populated with people that were actually magical beings. Because remember, this is a fantasy. Pure, beautiful, formless spirit was who they are, and no form, no limits, no body, so they could not die. People worry about the dying thing, right? They couldn't die, and they had direct knowledge and perception and knowing, so there was no need for any mind to confuse them. They just looked at something and they knew really the natural state, and they were fully aware of their connection to where they came from. They didn't forget. It wasn't like a belief or a religion or something they hoped was true, or were just saying, I believe it because I believe it and I hope I'm right, or something like that. It was a direct, continuous experience of the connection to where they came from that people I think they call it God, right? Spirit or God. And they were kind of like angels, but not just in a story that was imaginary. This was real. And then they decided to experience physical life on this beautiful planet. And for that, they needed a physical body, costume. And it had to be projected by consciousness because everything came from that. Slowing down the frequency of energy enough to appear physical. But what we know from quantum physics and some experiences that physical is not really solid. It just looks that way because of how the senses are tuned in. Anyway, they also needed a mind to process information, to be connected to the body through a brain. You've heard of those things, right? It's just imaginary, of course. All of this had to be projected from pure consciousness, the only really available building material that has ever existed for making anything if you go back to all the way to the source. But there was a glitch in projecting mind, not asking for the owner's manual, just experimenting instead, and mind programs were allowed to run around unchecked and splitting pure life into what they call good and bad. Instead of just limitless beauty, it became good and bad. And instead of remembering the pure life and living in that without forgetting, almost all the people in this story got quickly lost in the mind programs. And some of them felt like they were good, and some of them decided we want to be bad in these costumes. And a lot of them just got lost in the drama of good and bad programs, following their whims and changing moods, lost in the good and bad illusion, trying to separate out the pleasure and from pain so they could only have pleasure, only pleasurable, fun experiences. But they could never do that because of the original mistake, splitting pure life into good and bad. So those two went together. And some old sages in their civilization said it was like choosing between the fruits of two trees. As their wandering into the mirages of good and evil went on, the conflict on the beautiful planet got worse, and those experiencing themselves as good and bad started hating each other. They totally forgot where they came from, forgot who they actually were and their one source, which they had all come from. They forgot it was all an illusion in a matrix of illusion created by mind programs. And if only they had remembered to read the owner's manual for mind, those programs would never have been projected. Even though the drama was an illusion created by mind programs, they experienced it as real, and the suffering was beyond any description. Many on the good side prayed to God, their source, to save them and to kill all the bad people and torture them forever in hell, which they thought would be quite reasonable, considering the bad things that the bad people had done. And a lot of people on the bad side prayed to their God to help them win the game and to kill all the good people and torture them forever in hell, which was only right because they were serving evil, their idea of evil. And the good forgot who they were, and they were locked into the hatred of the bad. And the bad forgot who they were too, and they were locked into hatred of the good. And both sides forgot they were all made out of the same original consciousness and the same source, with no real imperfections at all. They forgot they were all one family and actually one being. If they had even just remembered that, they would have understood that whoever hates anyone hates themselves. And though forms come and go in the matrix, no one made from the original source could really die, only the form. So fighting and hating each other was just a lot of useless suffering, but both sides forgot and were lost in the illusion. Gradually, technology arose that could destroy all the life on their planet, threatening to end this life experiment in a catastrophic failure, shutting down the whole matrix of programs, ripping the good and bad people out of their fake identities, suddenly crashing the projections of bodies and minds in cosmic shock, leaving the good and bad people back in their original forms to recover from the nightmare that they thought would have been fun as best they could. It turned into the ultimate trauma. But there was a short window of time that we're looking at them right now for a much better solution and a better end to the play. The great destruction did not have to happen. It was still possible until the point of no return. For the original love, the original reality, the essence of beauty, to end the dream with beauty and with beauty and joy instead of horror. Couldn't read my own writing there. How could it happen in the short time before technology ended life? There wasn't much time to lose. Only one way it could happen, and that was open to the people in the story. Some of them, anywhere on the planet, had to break free of the trance for themselves, not as a new belief, not starting a new religion, but for real as an experience. If it would be real, it would spread. The dream would end happily, and they would all wake up. If not, the dream would go on, and they would have more chances in other environments after their planet was destroyed. It would go on as long as necessary until they got it right. Would it happen in time for this chapter in this environment? We don't know what happened to these people. I personally hope that they made it without needing to do it again. I really like happy endings. That's my preference. More than the satisfaction of fighting and trying to destroy the people on the other side. But where we end the story is we don't know. Will they wake up, or will they be lost in hating each other and fighting? What if you were there and it was up to you? Just saying, if this were real instead of an imaginary scenario, what would you do if you were one of those people? Do you think you'd remember? Look at what you're doing now. I mean, not that it's related to the real life or anything, But it was just something that came across my mind, and I thought, this seems to be related somehow to where we are now. And we're looking at all these situations, and we got thousands of people making videos now, some of them really good too, about what's going on that's wrong that people don't really know about. The group that thinks it's bad is controlled by a very small so-called elite control group at the top. It's very few people, and they're controlled by ones above them. At the top, it's not human. And most of the people running around in the planet that we've got here have no idea, that this is all according to exact orchestration by a small group running the whole show. And that group thinks they're about to win. And they have reason to think that because they've got all the usual channels blocked for resistance. But the ones on the top know that there's a channel they don't have blocked. And that's if they wake up, if the regular people running around on the planet, the ones like us, if we become aware, not in theory, but in experience of who we really are, then what can flow through us is much stronger than any darkness. But we get distracted. We keep fighting each other and thinking who we're against and all the terrible people that we hate and all this stuff. It's a complete distraction from the only thing that we could make it work with. And there are still ways to get back, but the time is short. You can really see the technology playing its role now. And what's being planned is to organize and control everything on the way to destruction. And I think, and I probably would imagine that you would agree that this is not a good way for us to end civilization. And I'm saying we don't really have to do that. There's still an option. So just a little fantasy idea. The time we've got left is limited, and how you use it is really important. Most people aren't watching their own thoughts. Their intentions, which they forgot, are really powerful. And they think all these things happening on the outside just happen, and they're victims of other people and circumstances and that sort of thing. They don't know that they're projecting whatever this story is going to be and where it's going to end. So if we wake up to our power to do that, we still keep doing our job on the physical level. But what we're putting out on an invisible level is much stronger than we're aware. So time to remember. And there are things to do that need to follow that if you're brave enough. You're much more powerful than you know. So anyway, I got to go get ready for the main show. Just wanted to share that with you. Hopefully you like it instead of sarcasm all the time. I think it's all stuff that's safe to say because it's just a fantasy story anyway, right? That can't be a threat to the system. But you are. And it's funny that they would see you that way because you're really the only thing that would save the people in the bad system and let them wake up in time to change what they're doing too. And it's if you do it first. So anyway, remember to go to lostartsradio.com to stay in touch with where the real shows are. And we have one of those starting in about 13 minutes now. That's a Saturday live show, Lost Arts Radio Live, about current events. And that's going to be interesting today. I hope you can get there in time to see it. And then Planetary Healing Club is a half an hour after that. And that's where we start talking about applying some of these things in real life, specifics. And if you want to, the access point to that is at planetaryhealingclub.com. And of course, you're invited if you want to be there with us. That's live every Saturday, Saturday afternoon, U.S. time. And then we have a Sunday show. Hopefully you know about that. That's our original guest show. And that's a Sunday show. That's tomorrow night. And we've got incredible people showing up there. So you're welcome. And all the archives are free. All that stuff's available. So we've got a lot of material. and videos and articles almost every day on lostartsradio.com. So anyway, thanks for the little bit of time. Really appreciate your humoring me for a short story. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that you're the main character and you're writing your own script. So just decide how it ends. And I'll see you next time. Have a good night.